Yes, we've made the right decision in getting a word processor, there's no doubt about that, but it's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of energy in making it work really cost-effectively for us. But I don't mind that because we'll be a better practice when we've done it.
It is in use pretty well all the working day. Secretaries no longer have to type documents, they're all done on the word processor.
If you were to take away my word processor now, I'd cry and then come after you with a blunt instrument. There's no way that I could do without it now.
The statements you've just heard all come from solicitors who use word processing in their practices. They have much in common. They all use this system, the Philips Prospect. They work in general practices, and most of them find that they can use their word processor profitably on a broad range of legal work.
That's because their word processor is saving them a tremendous amount of time in dealing with paperwork. Paperwork which, in any solicitor's practice, is the key to its entire operation. A word processor speeds up the production of documents because it can store information. To recall a master document, just put in the right disk and up comes the text on the screen. Any changes can simply be typed in. And in just a few seconds, a specially tailored document is ready to go. All this is in direct contrast to an office system using manual typewriters, where documents have to be retyped in full to accommodate large or small alterations.
This Philips machine, the Prospect, is powerful but easy to use. It can perform a range of complex functions, but perhaps the simplest of these, and the one which is most attractive about word processors, is the way in which you can alter text without needing to retype it, because it all happens here on this screen. Say, for example, I found some spelling mistakes in this letter, or some things which I don't like. For example, I'd like to underline Apple Tree Cottage. Well, that's quite easy, because I can just press a few buttons and underline it. And I can center it if I want to, push the whole heading along to the center. And down here, I've spotted that there are too many O's in couple, so we can get rid of one of those. And on the next line, I've noticed what perhaps many of us do when we're dictating a letter. We've put in one too many at your conveniences. So let's get rid of those, which can be done again at the press of a button. And all that information is now stored on a 5¼ inch mini disc, which is kept in a disk drive at the side of the screen. The document I've just revised can now be printed out fast using a high-speed printer. But for solicitors, word processing offers a great deal more through a combination of the Philips Prospect and a range of powerful software. Hear first from Mike Williamson.
We wanted a word processor for a number of reasons. One of the reasons was that we wanted to have standard documents. It's quite feasible to have standard documents without a word processor as such. But having taken the decision to have standard documents, particularly for things like conveyancing, probate and wills, it seemed that it would be far more effective then to have those on a word processor, which could deal with them very quickly.
Mike Williamson is one of 7 partners in a practice in Lincoln. They've had a word processor for 2 months, and so far it's used only for conveyancing.
Our original thought about word processors was that all it did was type very quickly, or it retained in a memory documents which it then printed very quickly. It's only when we went out and had a look at actual word processors that we saw that there was facility with some to do a little bit more.
John West, one of 5 partners in a Grimsby practice. They've had their word processor for 6 months.
Well, we'd realised that we'd have to have a word processor and computer for many years. The question was, we were waiting for the cost to come down to our level. We anticipated it would in due course. And then we had to make the decision as to whether to have one machine which would both do accounts computing and word processing or not. In the end, we opted for 2 separate machines. And when we'd done that, I looked around at what machine would suit us best. And when I did that, I decided that the Philips appeared to suit our needs best of all.
Howard Hardy, from a 3-partner Gainsborough firm, has 2 years' experience of word processing.
We all found ourselves, because of our lack of knowledge, accepting that there were severe limitations on it. We could readily identify that there were certain areas where one could see its immediate use, conveyancing, wills, trusts, things of that sort, where the variables were fairly minimal and many standard clauses were used. But we had no idea until we actually had the machine and began to develop some experience on it that it could be used for much wider areas than we thought at the time, particularly litigation and particularly matrimonial. We now find that with the ability to delete, to move paragraphs around in a particular document, to clause string, by which one means that one can take out clauses from different documents and put them together in a new document. This gives us a flexibility which we hadn't fully appreciated until we were actually operating the machine.
The Philips that we've got has a considerably greater capacity than at first instance seemed necessary. But that gives us the ability to do far more things than just process large chunks of text.
Can you explain to me the legal areas which you're using it for now?
First of all, we're using it in the traditional fashion of preparing or having draft documents, conveyancing transfers and leases, etc., on disk, stored away, which we can pull out, fill in the gaps, and produce at short notice. We then also use it for drafting purposes in all aspects of the of work, so that from drafting a letter to drafting a 20-page document, it goes on the word processor and can then be corrected and recorrected, etc. We also use it for standard documents which are merged with client files.
Merging 2 sets of information together to create one document is a clear demonstration of a word processor saving time. Standard information, such as an application to make a decree nisi absolute, is stored on disk. Individual client details are typed into the machine, and a keyboard command combines them with the standard form. In simple terms, it fills in predetermined gaps. Each document produced can be personalized, that is, special information added as required. The engrossment is then printed out.
A great deal of legal work involves producing documents using standard sentences, clauses and paragraphs, particularly true of conveyancing, leases, wills, divorce and commercial work. Word processors offer solicitors the facility of storing them all on disk. These precedents can be called up as needed, either full documents or a series of clauses, information added or deleted, and the document printed out from the disk using a high-speed printer. Collating and organizing precedents is time-consuming, but it is possible and often practical to buy them in, as did Howard Hardy. He bought his from Magna Legal Precedents.
If one is operating a practice where time is a problem in any event, then to impose an additional burden on the staff by asking them to write precedents within their particular field would be imposing a major problem, it seemed to me. And we took the decision of buying in so that within 2 weeks, really, of the machine arriving and having the staff trained, we were actually producing documents, which is much quicker than we could have done had we written it ourselves. The precedents that we purchased, which I think were the full range of precedents available at that time, only covered the sort of matters that I mentioned earlier, the conveyancing type work, wills and things of that sort. There was no precedent that we were aware of which covered litigation, including matrimonial work and things of that sort. And indeed, initially, we didn't think that the machine had an application in that area anyway. So it was in those fields that we decided to develop and do our own precedents, and we've also adapted and amended through sheer experience the work or the precedents that we purchased, and we now find that for the bulk of our work we use our own.
John West also bought in precedents to get started. Like Howard Hardy, these have since been adapted and new ones generated. But not everyone agrees that buying in precedents is a good idea. Mike Williamson.
So we didn't want to inherit other people's, possibly their problems. We didn't want to inherit, more particularly, the way that they worked. We wanted to have our own ways of working. So we developed our own. We also thought that we ought to have our own precedents before we got the word processor, because there's nothing magical as such in the word processor. It's just its most basic form, typing very quickly. So we thought we ought to have our own precedents in from the beginning, and that's what we did. We, with conveyancing anyway, got our conveyancing precedents, and then when we got the word processor here, we were able to put those onto it on disk.
Whichever method is chosen, precedents are vital in helping solicitors make the most of word processing. But what about the overall advantages?
The benefits, so far as we are concerned at the moment, are that we have considered the way within conveyancing that we work as a practice, not only on the secretarial front, but also for fee owners. And I hope that by the time we've finished, we're going to have a much more streamlined system so that fee earners are able to cope more efficiently with a greater volume of work, and that will be the same with the secretarial side. Also, we're going to have a better product. It's going to look better.
John West again.
We are constantly dealing with words and printed words and typed words, and the word processor can improve the quality and the accuracy of everything we do. It can take away the repetition, and it can save time, and both in typing time and fee earner time. When you don't have to dictate a full letter, you merely say, well, do this letter, and the end product is just as if it had been typed on a typewriter, only better.
Howard Hardy.
Speed of producing documents. I think that we're now in a position to produce documents much quicker than before, and this gives us a degree of confidence in dealing with certain types of work in terms of giving estimates for when certain things can be done, which is clearly important to certain clients. Some work is very urgent, and if it is the sort of work where we're already geared up to do it on a word processor, it can be done very quickly, much quicker than tying up a typist for maybe 2 days when she also had other important work to do.
Having made the commitment to word processing, it's then a matter of integrating it into the office system. Existing secretaries can be trained by Philips to operate the machine. But how many trained operators might you need?
Well, we've had 2 secretaries trained by Philips, and the way that we thought that we would be able to use them most effectively would be if they both worked half a day each on the word processor, whilst continuing to work for their fee earner at the present. That way we didn't have to take on any more staff to cope with the word processor, and we were able to deal still with our present workload.
Well, what we've done is we have the word processor in a room by itself. We had 2 girls trained to use it. In the end, they share the time equally. One girl is on the processor in the morning, one girl in the afternoon, but they work together and they help each other. Everybody in the office sends to them the sort of work that can be done on it. And I get all my letters typed there as well.
Operating a word processor can appear difficult to begin with, but after training, most operators find that they have few problems.
When a piece of work comes in, we put it on a work pile because everybody, with the machine being so quick, they think that they can have it in just 2 minutes. So we put it on a work pile so that everybody gets a fair crack at getting their work off as quickly as possible. Then according to whether it's a merge or a recalling by block, in the case of wills, or a brief, we put it on the machine, and then we run it off in a draft flimsy copy and give it back as quickly as possible to the person that's brought it. And then they will go through and amend it and bring it back. We'll amend it on the screen and then print it off for them. And then it can go out in that same day's post.
We've been in a lot of difficulty without it. We'd have to employ more staff because a processor operator can get through so much work in so little time. Whereas before, the other girls have had so much work to do, extra work. I mean, to type out a conveyance, it takes so long to do. Well, it can be done in a matter of 5 minutes on the processor. And it's far more time-consuming to have to type out a document. So we'll be completely lost without one.
Before the word processor came, I think there was some fear, an understandable fear amongst the staff, particularly the secretaries, as to what the introduction of the machine would mean. There was the obvious fear, did it mean redundancy? We were able to convince them that there was no possibility that we would be making anyone redundant. And in fact, we embarked on the scheme on that basis. Subsequently, one girl left of her own accord, purely for domestic reasons, and we've found we've not had to replace her.
A word processor in the main office is often only the first step. Branch offices can be linked to the system using a satellite station, typewriter keyboard, a mini cassette tape storage system, and visual display. It's a cost-effective method of bringing word processing to the widest range of users. Word processors can also talk to each other, transmitting text from firm to firm over ordinary telephone lines. All they need is a special telephone link-up. And users of the 128K Philips Prospect can make use of the facilities of the new computerized legal libraries like Eurolex. This means access to a vast library of law reports, statutes, case law, and journals. Say, for example, you had a case involving blue asbestos. Eurolex could provide information quickly and economically. In practice, such is the demand for this service that it's often desirable to have an extra workstation and printer. For solicitors, word processing has been one of the most important and useful developments in recent years. But perhaps the last words on that should go to the people who've discovered its advantages.
A, it has immense uses for the office, and B, I don't think that solicitors can survive long without it in the competition that that we are facing and going to face in an increasing amount.
I think it's possible to get a word processor and to follow the vogue. I've seen other practices do it, in fact, and they get nowhere, and it's a dead expense for them. But providing that you put the energy into it and the thought into it, I think is going to be an enormous help and a very useful tool for all practices.
Solicitors who don't have word processors, I think, are creating difficulties for themselves in the future because it clearly does speed up the production of documents, and we're becoming more competitive. We're being encouraged to become more competitive. And it's one area, i.e. the provision of service and speed of work to a client, that can be beneficial to a particular practice and directly improve its profitability.